Mike, we've talked ad nauseum about why I'm not a fan. And at the risk of being repetitive, I stopped being a Saints fan in 1992. And then when I came into the business, because I'm an OG at this point, back in our day, it wasn't popular to be a fan and be in media. You couldn't be a fan and be in media and maintain your credibility. We had to be objective, we had to be neutral, we had to be impartial, or at least appear that way. And so a 22-year-old kid walking around being a fan, like, no, there was no cheering in the press box back in our day, Michael. Nowadays, you go out, it's part of people's brand to be fans. But I wasn't a fan of the Saints since 1992 because I got tired of them breaking my heart. And I've told that to people. People in New Orleans, they get mad at me until the Saints piss them off and then they understand. But I got tired of them breaking my heart in the playoffs. It only took twice. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, can't fool me again. You know, it only took twice in the playoffs for me to be like, I'm done, right? And I didn't even grow up with bags on my head. I didn't grow up with the Aints, Michael. And so, fast forward, I tell people all the time I root for good stories and I root for good people. So I'm not a fan of anybody. But the reason I'm not a fan of any particular teams is because I like to protect my peace. I like to protect my mental health. Self-preservation, Michael. Because I've tried. I cannot imagine what it must be like to be a Dallas Cowboys fan today. What? The amount of torture, you know, the amount of masochism that goes on when it comes to being a Cowboys fan, to put yourself through this time and time again. And I'm not here to clown. Enough people are going to clown or have been clowning the Cowboys and their fans since last night. I come in peace and I come to extend my deepest sympathies and condolences and actually admiration, because I don't know how you do it to yourselves. I don't know how you do it, because the Cowboys fans have to have it the worst. They have to have it the worst because they can't hide. They're not irrelevant. To me, they are, and I'll get to this in a second. To me, the Cowboys are irrelevant henceforth, now, and forevermore. They're irrelevant to me. But I'll come back. It's not about me right now. It's about the fans. Their team is not irrelevant. It's America's team, for crying out loud. It's the most valuable franchise in the NFL and one of the most valuable franchises in all of sports, globally. Definitely North American professional sports. So they have to suffer these indignities in full view. Like everybody is checking for the Cowboys, whether they root for them or not, for reasons such as yesterday. And all I know, Michael, is if I were a fan, I would rather my team be a laughing stock than a sick joke. Let me say that again. I'd rather be a laughing stock than a sick joke. Because for it to happen the stat that blew my mind yesterday, first team in NFL history with 3 consecutive seasons of 12 wins or more without a championship game to show for it. Without a conference championship game to show for it.
Ooh.
It's like, why do you do this to yourselves? Like, maybe I'm just soft and can't take it, but like, it's self-inflicted. Why do you invest emotionally in something, in an entity that is going to disappoint you in a way that no other franchise disappoints? We could talk about chargering all we want. I used to say this, you know, why must the Browns brown so brown? That was before Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski. We could talk about all these franchises that are the Lucy, the Lucy to Charlie Brown holding the football. You know what I mean? Like, we could talk about those franchises, the Falcons. We could talk about 28-3 all we want. None of those franchises, none of them, build up their fans to let them down the way the Dallas Cowboys do. And I feel sorry for them today. I feel sorry for Cowboys fans because nobody deserves this. Nobody deserves this. Nobody deserves to have a team that looked unbeatable at home get the brakes beat off them by the 7th seed. Nobody deserves to have a quarterback have the first ever perfect passer rating in his playoff debut at the expense of your team. You can't make this shit up. You cannot, there is no script. I don't want to see any more script commercials. There are no scripts for this. There are, no, not for this. This is torture. This is inhumane. This should be illegal. Like, this should be illegal in certain states. Like, to get, I don't want to go too far. But the act, let's just say the physical act, that the Cowboys are committing on their fans, okay, I'll just leave it at that. Yeah. Once upon a time was illegal in a lot of places, probably still is. Oh. Okay. Like, it's just, I'm sorry, how do they do it, Michael? How do these fans put up with this?
Man, you put a lot out there, and I can't disagree with any of it. I think you're looking for the words from the prophet, Martin Luther King Jr., who once said, "If I cannot do great things, I can do small things in a great way." But the Cowboys can't do either. They can't do great things, and they can't do small things in a great way. And I think part of the reason, Michael, is what you said. They are. I'll give them all the credit. They put the work in long before Jerry Jones got here. You know, Tex Schramm, Gil Brandt, Tom Landry, all those guys were instrumental in building the foundation and making the Cowboys America's team. They did things that other franchises weren't willing to do. Oh, we'll play a game on Thanksgiving. What do you mean? Oh, we'll change up our uniforms. We'll have alternate uniforms. We'll do all these things. We're excited about it. Oh yeah, we'll be the guinea pig for what the NFL wants to do. And I think it caught on, and they played an exciting brand of ball, and they won. If they didn't win Super Bowls, they were always in contention. There was a guy in our neighborhood, Michael. We used to call him Uncle Jerome. So Uncle Jerome, just in the middle of the country, in Ohio, had no reason to be a Cowboys fan. He never lived in Texas. He wasn't a fan of the NFC East, anything. He just was a Cowboys fan. And he always got excited about the Cowboys. His line about them was, it's like, "Uncle Jerome, why you like the Cowboys so much?" "Ooh, even when they lose, it's exciting." He always said that. Even when they lose, it's exciting. So they got fans all around the country, but I think part of their mystique gets to their players. And maybe that sounds like I'm making excuses for the players. But they are not equipped to carry the crown that's on their head. It's too heavy for them. They ain't that. They can't live up to the scrutiny. I knew it. Michael, from afar, I could see it in their eyes yesterday in the first quarter when the Packers got opening. They took the kickoff, went down the field, and scored. Nothing. Then all of a sudden it's 14-zip, and I could see it in their eyes. It was too much. It was too much for them. I don't know.
It's a lot of weight.
It's a lot of weight. It is. It's weight. Is that choking? Is that the same as being a chokers? I don't think that really encapsulates it. Is it choking, or is it you've been promoted to a spotlight, to a level of scrutiny that maybe your experience, your promotion kind of has outpaced your experience. Your promotion has kind of outpaced your ability. And it's too much for you. Like, we shouldn't have been surprised. They shouldn't have been as heavily favored as they were.
No. That was shocking. And that we disagree. Yes, they should have. The way this team played at home in the regular season against a team full of first and second year players with a first time starting quarterback. Like the old adage of like, oh, you kind of got to go through it to get to it. And you get your breakthrough, all the disappointment, all the experience that many of the Cowboys, starting with Dak Prescott, bring to the playoffs or brought to the playoffs. There's no way. Like, losing to the Packers is one thing. The Packers beating the shit out of them? No way. Only the Cowboys, and ironically, the Cowboys coached by former Packers coach Mike McCarthy. I mean, we look at it from that way, if you look at it from the prism of the Cowboys will event new and creative and unseen ways, yes, we should not have been surprised. But based on the way the Cowboys played this year, particularly at AT&T, and based on who they were playing, a Packers team that I told you last week, I invoked the old cliche about the Packers having no F's to give, right? I talked about teams that you did not want, the proverbial team you did not want to see was the Packers, okay? Because they didn't know any better. They were, that old young team that's ahead of schedule. I don't know how many air quotes I can fit into one comment. Ahead of schedule, right? But even I didn't see that coming. By the way, did I tell you that I was a Cowboys fan? So in high school, I've been 13 years old. So Randall Cunningham and the Eagles come into the Superdome, and they beat the Cowboys. They beat the Saints. It was 20-3 at halftime. Saints had won a division at 12-4 that year, I believe. I think they won a division. They were 12-4 at a home playoff game, 1992. They lead 20-3 at halftime. They lose 36-20. I said never again. Around that same time, though, the Cowboys were on the come up. So in '88, they drafted Irvin. In '89, they hired Jimmy Johnson and drafted Troy Aikman. I love the way Troy Aikman would drop back at UCLA, like straight drop back. I love Troy Aikman, right? I was a quarterback in high school. That was my position. I didn't play. That was my position designation. Anyway,
you played.
Troy Aikman.
You beat Eli Manning.
I did. That was, I had my moments. Emphasis on moments. Like there's only a few of them. And then so '89 they draft Troy Aikman. 90 they draft Emmitt Smith, and in '91 I remember watching Thursday Night Football on TNT. Okay, and I watched Michael Irvin give Deion Sanders the business for like 160-something yards on nothing but slant routes. All right, and so I'm watching this, and I become a Cowboys fan. And next year they win the Super Bowl, and then they obviously went back to back, and then 3 and 4 years. So in high school, I was actually a Cowboys fan after I left the Saints. I wouldn't say I jumped on the Cowboys bandwagon so much as I, kind of got on early. I got in early. But something you were saying about just them being America's team struck me. It's like, is this just like the universe evening things out? They were so good and so competitive and so, so dominant for so long. Is this just kind of like, now you got to see how the other half lives, and you'll never get back to so much as the NFC Championship game for the next several decades? Like, it's just it's amazing. It's amazing that one organization can subject their fan base to this level of torture. It never fails. You can set your watch by it at this point.
Okay, you know what they are. I'm trying to think of, there's not an NFL equivalent to what they do. Because of this guy right here, Jerry Jones. There's nobody like Jerry Jones, quite like Jerry Jones. I know Al Davis was the owner / general manager. And I guess, Mike Brown used to be. But he's kind of turned over some of that personnel power to others, to Duke Tobin and others. But Jerry Jones, you know what Jerry Jones is? The equivalent is not in baseball, not in football, it's in baseball. Rest in peace, George Steinbrenner. It's George Steinbrenner with the Yankees. Like he'd have a general manager, but it was always, whenever they'd win, it'd say, what does George think? Whenever they lose in the playoffs, what does George think? And George is a constant presence at all times. He's not being seen and silent. He's being seen and he's being heard. And Jerry Jones is too. Once again, it sounds like I'm making excuses for the Cowboys players, but just the atmosphere. But the atmosphere is there. It's unusual just to have this hovering presence. Like, who works well? Who thrives in that environment? I guess the Yankees, the Steinbrenner Yankees
but here's the problem, Michael.
But after a while, it's just like, it's oppressive.
Here's the problem.
But they don't.
They don't. Not in the playoffs. Not when the chips are down. But no, you're right. But it's the extremes. It's just like you would think that they would falter in the regular season. I mean, they played pressure-filled games in the regular season, certainly not to the level of the playoffs. it's to go from the number 2 seed and win 12 games every year. I mean, you're right. I guess what I'm saying is, well, how do they manage to tune all the noise out that you're talking about the rest of the time? And they all seem to understand it. They all seem to acknowledge it. They know it's there. It's not subconscious. It's not beneath the surface. Many of them embrace it, and in some cases, Micah Parsons, like, utilize that platform to grow their own individual brands. Like, they don't run from it. Is what's confusing to me. They embrace it and they thrive in it. But just like you said at the beginning of the game, when they got hit by that first Packers punch, you could tell that they were shook. Ain't no such thing as halfway crooks. I'll get to Detroit in a second, even though that's Mobb Deep. But I'll get to 8 Mile in a second.
I like it.
So for me, Michael, I mean it. Unless and until I see Jerry Jones or any member of the Dallas Cowboys clutching the Lombardi Trophy in February, I vow to no longer discuss the Dallas Cowboys within the context of contenders. I don't care if they win every game. Remember when they won their first 2 games, like 100-20 or some shit against the 2 New York teams or whatever? It's like, I will never talk about them in a manner that suggests that they are capable of winning the Super Bowl ever again. Ever. I will discuss them from a fantasy football perspective because they put up pretty stats. CeeDee Lamb, wide receiver 1. Dak Prescott wins you a lot of games. Tony Pollard last year. You know, if you play the Cowboys defense, they'll win you some games. From a fantasy perspective, they are invaluable. From a reality perspective, they cannot be counted on. Remember leads.
Can't be trusted.
I remember the time you used rearview mirror in a lead at the Boston Globe. I remember Peter May's lead from the Boston Globe when the Blazers collapsed against the Lakers. Okay? What year was that? The Kobe Shaq, the dunk. What year was that?
Was it 99 or 2000? 2000. Maybe it was 2000.
Yeah, I'm getting old. I'm
somewhere around there,
years.
2000. Yeah.
Now, recall ain't what it used to be, but I remember this. I remember the lead in the Boston Globe was the best team that money could buy was Confederate currency when it came time to be counted. I remember that lead. And that's the Dallas Cowboys. That's the Dallas Cowboys. They are not worth it. They're not worth a damn when it's time to be counted. They're worthless. And it's really disappointing given the standard that they set for themselves and the expectations that they set for themselves in the regular season. So I'm never talking about them as contenders again. They are not in the conversation ever again, Michael. I will not. I don't care. They can go 17-0. They can run roughshod through the rest of the NFL, and I have to see them win the Super Bowl to believe that they can. I have to see it.
Hey, thank you for watching Brother from Another. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, go ahead and do that now. Don't forget, you can catch us 3 to 4 weekdays on PeacockTV.com and on Sirius XM Channel 85.